And we are live. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to episode 169. But before I introduce my guest, before we get into this, I do want to send out the deepest condolences and well wishes to the families of both the legendary Terry Funk and just finding out minutes before we begin this, Bray Wyatt, aka Mike Rotunda. Best wishes and deepest condolences to both families and to the community going through this right now. We're sending out love. But now, back to the conversation here. We are live. He is a true veteran of the game. He is that dude, John Davis. Good afternoon. Good evening. How's it going?
Pretty good, man. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much. And again, I'm definitely looking forward to this. And I'm looking forward to this conversation. So before I go into the questions, I do want to ask you, I have to ask you the question I ask everyone that comes on. You heard the name of the podcast. It's called Respect the Craft. So when you hear that term, though, for you, what does the term the craft mean?
Craft is the business. Without getting into the weeds, pro wrestling is a business, and a lot of people kind of forget that. It's one of those things that we all grew up on. We all had our favorites, people we wanted to emulate, be like, have them become our peers, and all this other stuff. And we get trained, or we get into the business. However, we get into the business, we kind of develop these habits, and in doing so, we kind of lose track of what's important as far as that goes. Me, for one, I'm really big on wiping your feet on the apron before you get in the ring. I will lose my mind if you don't wipe your feet. Uh, but it's just little things like that: wiping your feet, shaking people's hands, eye contact when you're having a conversation. If somebody walks in the room and they're shaking everybody's hands, stand up, respect them. And that's kind of what this is. Like, it's not a lot of people look at this as like, oh, well, he's just trying to be harder on the young guys, and that's not the case whatsoever. My thing is, we did the same thing, and it was rougher for us coming in than it is for a lot of these guys now. And granted, the talent level is insane. Like, there's more pure talent on the independents right now than there's ever been, honestly. But it's just, if you're one of those talented wrestlers, don't forget that the old heads are the reasons that you guys are doing it, and the old heads are the reasons that we're doing it beforehand. So just keep those rules, shake people's hands, be respectful, respect the craft.
There you go. That's perfect. No, definitely. So I do want to get into that. Let's talk about that for you, especially getting in when you got in. What was it that made you decide not only are you a fan of this, are you interested in wrestling, but you want to be a part of the business?
Bret Hart, Davey Boy Smith, SummerSlam '92, Wembley Stadium. I was a big Bret fan. I was small growing up as a kid, believe it or not, and I watched that match and instantly knew this is going to be the thing that I want to do. And not many people believed that I could do it because, again, I was small, but it's determination and hard work.
Gotcha. No, perfect. So now once you're in there though, once you decide you find the school you want to train at, you find where it is you want to go to, what was it that made you finally give that notion of, you know what, this was the right choice. I got to keep doing this. This is the path we're going here.
Once I got to the school, and I meet the guy, and he's like, yeah, if you guys want, you can get in the ring, see how you feel moving around in the ring. He's like, don't do any moves, don't take any bumps or anything, but just kind of see how you feel on stuff. And I got in there, and just, as corny as this is going to sound, I remember getting up on the apron, and I looked around, and there's this little warehouse. Like, they used to do auto detail in it. And there's cement walls, aluminum roof. It was super hot in there. I just remember standing on the apron and just looking from post to post. Okay, like, this feels like it's going to be something. And in a minute, I stepped through the ropes. Like, I was like, okay, this is I kind of feel like this is what I'm supposed to do. And I just took off and hit the ropes. Completely wrong, but I hit the ropes and I just stopped in the middle of the ring. And I just looked at the dude and I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do now. He's like, okay.
So it was just that instant click, like, you know what? Here we go. This is
Yeah. When you feel something, you feel something. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
when it's one of those love at first sight instances. Like, you get in there and there's that one little thing, and it sets you off, and you're off to the races at that point. And I knew, like, the minute I stopped in the middle of that ring, I was like, yeah, this is for me.
Gotcha. So now let's go into that. From, you said Brett, and you said that match, you set into that mindset. You already knew this was it. What was it for you that started to make you think, okay, these are the guys I'm looking up to, and were my idols to get into? This is the style I want to be in. This is the style I have to wrestle in. When you got into the biz,
style of my favorite wrestlers is not the style that I use.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. I'm a power guy.
Yeah.
I hit people pretty hard. It was once described that once I hit somebody, they stay hit. And so that didn't describe any of my favorites. Like my favorites were Brett, Arn Anderson was right behind him. I love Kurt Angle, Regal, like guys like that. Now Regal could hit, like he would throw strikes or whatever, but for the most part, most of my guys were technical. And what drew me to them is that one, none of their names sounded hokey. They sounded like real names. And I grew up in the South, so like you want to get behind somebody that sounds like somebody that you would see somewhere because they sound like a real person. So I grew up watching NWA. I wasn't a WWF guy until like 10 or 11. And the only thing that pulled me into that was seeing guys from NWA, WCW that were on WWE television. So, but they weren't huge. They weren't Hogan. They weren't Warrior. They weren't Warlord. They were, 210 to 230 pound guys, average height. They weren't towering over anybody, but they were real serious about their business. And
Yeah.
when you watched them wrestle, you never felt like you were getting they weren't putting on a show. They weren't just doing spots for the sake of doing spots. Like if Brett shot a takedown, he shot a takedown, and he would play around depending on the level of his opponent. But you could see these guys doing these things that made sense for them. And it was never Arn Anderson walking to the ring. Perfect example. He came out, sometimes he had on a jacket or a t-shirt, and he didn't have this big flashy entrance. He didn't have this crazy music. He came out to the Horseman music for his pretty much his entire career, whatever that happened to be at the time. But like the bell rang and he was about business. The Ultimate Warrior, he had the music, he had the face paint and the tassels, and he come full speed down and he was super yoked and tan and shaking the ropes, and then the bell rang and you're like, man, that was a cool entrance. And so that kind of is what separated the two for me. That's what threw me off from WWF for a long period of time. And their business is great now, but I wanted my superheroes in comic books.
Okay.
If that makes sense. So like I was all about guys who seemed like realistic athletes as opposed to larger than life cartoon characters.
Gotcha. So what was it that drew you then into, especially if you were watching more of that technical style, that mat based style? What was it that made you decide, you know what? I'm just gonna pick him up and throw him. let me just hit him as hard as I can, and hey, they're gonna stay hit. Like we got Pete Rosado in the chat saying they do stay hit. Don't worry, Pete. We're gonna get to the tag match in a little bit.
So I came up when I broke into the business, I was all of $185. To give you an idea, I'm 275 now. So I started off and I was doing stand-in shooting stars, springboard, or split-legged moonsaults, and I was matrixing up out of pins and all this other stuff. And I kind of evolved. I started putting on some weight and training and getting bigger. I got more technical, and then I played around with some comedy stuff here and there just for personality stuff, because I had some guys on here that like, look, you got to develop a personality. You can't just be a straight wrestler. So I started working on that kind of stuff. And then this little tag team you may have heard of called the Dark City Fight Club with Corey Chavis. And we did a match. Our first match there was Steen and Generico. There you go. And so we got to the back, and I had a conversation with Pierce, and he told me to grow facial hair because I only had like a little bit at the time, because apparently I looked like a child without it. And then he said that to play with my style a little bit more, because I was a big dude, but I wasn't wrestling big enough. So then I just sat down and started studying tape, and I would watch, and it wasn't just wrestling. I would watch pro wrestling. I would watch movies. I would watch MMA. I would watch everything and see kind of what stuck to me. And then I started playing around with what I could do physically in the ring. Like instead of saying, okay, well, I'm going to do this moonsault and whatever. I'm like, okay, how much do you weigh? And they're like, oh, I'm 300 pounds. Cool. I'm going to see if I can pick up off the ground, just laying flat. And I got to where I started doing that, and it just kind of became a thing. And the striking kind of came along afterwards. So shortly after, Davey Richards dislocated my jaw in a match. Yeah, he kicked me right. I mean, square in the chin, popped my jaw out of place. Finished the match. I think I threw him into the 6th throw that match, somewhere around there. Like we had to sign paperwork afterwards that we wouldn't go into the crowd anymore. And if we did, we were liable. But then I started working on my striking a little bit, and
Okay.
just to kind of round everything out, because I knew I could go technical if I needed to. I knew I
Okay.
could fly if I needed to, which I would never ever need to fly. And so I just wanted to have that striking aspect, and that's kind of what stuck.
Not you. No, and again, definitely seeing you now. I've definitely seen the just again the combination of having that strength, but also those strikes definitely leave a mark, and again leave them hit. Like here we
Yeah,
go, Pete saying this, and definitely that clip is still going out there. Sebastian Cage is still hit from that one encounter. Yeah, when you get hit with you get stuck with that Siberian Bear Crusher. It's over.
yeah,
You're feeling that
yeah.
for a
That's one
while.
of those moves. That's one of those moves where somebody's like, "Hey, what's your finishing move?" Like, "Oh, you'll know when you see it."
Yeah, because it's not. I don't think it's a move. It's just the perfect combination of here you go, and that's the end.
Yeah, yeah.
So, well, again, that's a finish for you. That's the perfect definition of a finish. But you mentioned it a little bit. Let's get into that. How was it that this was formed? We're talking about here the Dark City Fight Club. How is it that we
Uh,
get to this pairing right here that we see not only in Ring of Honor but definitely around the independents?
so I'm gonna start with this. Uh, Anybody who's paying attention, Corey Chavis does not get the love that he deserves. He does not get the praise that he deserves. People don't talk about him enough. Go back and watch his stuff as Rain Man. Go back and watch early Dark City. Go back and watch late Dark City. Corey's one of those guys who we met randomly at Dory Funk's. We were doing a show for Dory Funk Jr.
Oh wow.
And
Okay.
we just kind of started chit chatting here and there, and we just kind of hit it off. And but I was aware of who he was because I mean he was working with Hero, he was working with Punk, he was working with everybody. All the guys that were big names on the indies knew who Corey was and were excited to see him. I remember we were at Impact one time and Joe was still there, and Joe was talking to somebody and just happened to see Corey and like jumped out of the ring to go say what's up to Corey, and that stuck with me. Um, but it's crazy because, and I'm not just saying that because he was my partner and he taught me a ton of things, but it's just he's one of those guys that just don't get enough love, and it drives me insane. Anyway, so we were in we were in South Florida somewhere, and we were doing a show called Pro Wrestling Riot, and I was kind of coming on to the FIP scene,
Okay.
and they were telling me they're like, "Hey, you need a little bit of seasoning, so we're going to give you a tag partner." I'm like, "Cool," and they didn't give me any details or whatever, but Corey and I were on the show, and we were both walking out, and Sal was like, "Hey, do you guys have matching gear?" And I was wearing basketball shorts and a t-shirt, but I had my gear on under, and I pulled it down. It was blue. He pulled the shirt up. He had on a blue singlet. I was like, "Yeah, we do." He's okay. You guys are going to start at FIP in 2 weeks. Come up with a team name. And he walked away. And so I called Corey, and I was like, he's like, "I want to do something with Dark City," and I was like, "I want to do something with the Fight Club." He goes, "Dark City Fight Club." I was like, "Word." We hung the phone up. Then we're off to the races.
There you go. What a perfect way of just like, well, yeah, this works.
Yeah, it
And
just kind of
it clicks from there.
fell right into it. And to continue to put Corey over a little bit more is that what worked for us was that the thing that made us the same separated us. We would explain our styles like watching Freddie and Jason. Like we're both there to kill you, but we're going to do it in very different ways. Uh,
Gotcha.
Corey's facial expressions were top notch. The way he sold things were top notch. He had really good psychology. My psychology was pretty strong at that point, but it got a lot better because of him.
Okay.
And so when we came to the ring again, it was you knew there was going to be trouble, and you knew that somebody was going to get smashed. But which one of us caught you first? Basically, it was a race to see which one of us were going to put you down first. It's pretty much how our stuff went. And but like that caught on, it got respect. But we were treated kind of sort of like the Road Warriors. Like we'd come to the ring and like we having matches less than 5 or 6 minutes, and then we're out. Thanks everybody. See you next time.
Again, a destructive force, but then it leads to matches like the ones you had with the Bravado brothers. You guys faced the Kings of Wrestling. You were in there with the Briscoes. For you, those matches, how did that feel? Especially again, it's a new pairing in there, and then just going in there, and then it's one of the teams that you talk about the Ring of Honor tag team division. You guys had everybody at that point.
So I will high key flex that the Ring of Honor tag division in the years that we were there was the best tag teams in the world over the last 30 years. I'm open for debate if you want to give it to me, but I don't feel like team for team, pound for pound, person for person, there was a better tag team division. Any one of those people in the tag team division could main event the show by themselves, but we were putting everything we could in the tag.
Yeah.
Uh, and it was very important to each of the teams in the company that uh, we continue to prove that. Like if we could tear it down and there'd be a misstep or a thought process, and like one of us would feel like we were off, and we were like, no, we gotta work on that. We gotta make it better, and it showed month per month, week per week, TV for TV, house show for house show. We just kept pushing. Now, as far as what it felt like, Corey knew all these guys already, so it was. I had to meet a lot of them, but I kind of got grandfathered in because of Corey. But then once the bell rang and they knew I was legit, I never had any issues. But we were very proud to one be so young as a team and swimming with the sharks, and two to have the guys fight for us. We did our first Ring of Honor match with Steen and Generico, and our second night it was Corey and I and a guy named Francisco Chiazzo versus Brent Albright, Eric Stevens, and Roderick Strong. Uh, Post match, we got to please come back chant, and we were in Orlando, and a lot of these fans didn't really. I mean, some of them knew us, but the majority are Ring of Honor fans.
Yeah.
So they are on their feet. And I remember walking to the back, and Adam Pearce was like, "You guys got a job. We just got to figure out the details." And so, like, everybody was pushing for everybody else. So it helps your confidence, and it makes you want to do the same for everybody else as well. So all the new kids coming in that we worked with, or guys that were trying out, like I was real good on just grabbing somebody, walking them to the side, and say, "Hey, this is what I saw. Let's work on this next time." Or "This was terrible. This is why this was terrible. This is how you fix it." Or "Hey, this is what these guys are looking for." Or "Hey, I think you're there. Let me go talk to somebody for you." Things like that.
Gotcha. No, which I can imagine with those experiences, it just gave you even more. Now you're going in this still young new career and already have just decades of experience right there, just
Yeah,
because of who you're working with at the time and just what's going on. You're already ahead of the curve at such a young start.
absolutely. And we got lucky, honestly. I mean, we had Brian was still there, and he was super helpful. You had vets like Rashi Brown, he was there. Um, Prince Nana is another one of those guys who don't get enough credit. He's seen and done so much,
Definitely.
and he takes it. So we were sorry, it's a sidebar. Every time I think of Nana, I think about this.
All good.
We were in Dayton, Ohio, and Les Thatcher was running a seminar before the show, and he wanted the guys to. It was just a simple whip off drill, like a billy gun, like a leapfrog drop, whatever it was. And so Nana is doing the seminar, and everybody was kind of tripping because Nana's known as a mouthpiece and a manager, and he used to wrestle, and he was pretty talented. But so he gets in there, and like he's got this mug on his face, like he's ready to kill somebody. So he gets ready to start this drill, and he just starts murdering this kid with forearms. Like he hit him to the point it was me. I want to say I was standing with Hero. I don't remember who else, and Les was not too far from us, and all of our heads jerked back, and we all just kind of looked at each other. And Nana just murking this kid with these forearms, and then went into the drill or whatever. And it's like, Nana, relax, bro. Like we're just working out with these guys, but he's 100% at all times. It was insane. Sorry, I think I lost my train of thought. That's about like one of my favorite stories.
It's all good. And the amount of times I've seen Nana, I would have never thought, just like, yeah, he's just gonna murk someone in the corner. Like,
Yeah, it was
it
it
happens.
was bananas, but like it was him showing the guys that they have to take it seriously, and like
Gotcha.
I think I don't remember the guys like playing around or being goofy or whatever, but Janana was like, look, if you want to be here, you have to earn this spot.
Gotcha.
And it was so out of left field, and nobody saw it coming. It was ridiculous. But so where I was going.
Yeah.
So we had so many people in the locker room. We had Nana, we had Jerry Lynn was in there. Dealer was there for a little bit, Nigel so we had all these guys, and they just wanted everybody to be good. And that was the big thing. It's just like, how do you be the absolute best? And that's what the goal for Ring of Honor was. And I mean, I'm sure it's still that way now, but they have the advantage of a TV deal now. And before, we were just getting on the HD net, and I was like the second wave Ring of Honor. Like I was 08, 09, 2010. So like that first wave, it just kind of started to, Brian was on his way out. Joe was already gone. Punk was gone. Aries was still there. He was another one. Aries was still there, but then like those guys were kind of going on to the next step of their careers, and we
Yeah.
were coming in, and so they had this big heavy ball that we had to run with, and we had to figure it out.
Yeah, especially again for that tag team division when you think about just who was there and who, like, the embassy was built up that by that point. You have just what the SAT left there, the hit squad left there. Just again, that's a whole just like, well, here you go now. Now it's time to it's make or
Yeah,
break it at that point.
and from that we birthed the American Wolves, the Dark City Fight Club, the Briscoes, who were already there,
Yeah.
uh, Kings of Wrestling, All Night Express, Bravados, Cheech and Cloudy,
Yep.
uh, Irish Airborne. Um, I feel like I'm forgetting somebody, but anyway, you kind of get the gist of where I'm
Yeah,
going with
of
it.
course.
I mean, I remember Sammy Callahan and Mox trying out before a show one day and them not being sold on it. Think about that. Two of the biggest stars that we've seen recently, and it's like, and Mox is up there, and
Yeah.
they're just like, oh, we don't know if you're ready yet, which was crazy because they were an amazing tag team at that time too.
Yeah.
It's just how Ring of Honor was at the time, I guess.
Which again, it makes sense though for the time, just how cutthroat it had to be, just because of who was there at that point. So it makes
Yeah,
sense. It's one of those where, who knows where it would have led them, but hey, it's one of those where you guys had to. It definitely made sure if you're there, there's a reason now.
yeah, I
But
think it worked out pretty good for both of them. So I
I
don't think
think
they're
so.
upset.
I think so. One of them's in Wembley this Saturday, and the other is still killing it at Impact and with Pro Wrestling Revolver as well. So
Yep.
it's all working out. But let's go back to the Fight Club here. Let's talk about just for you guys again after that run, just going and say doing more on the independent, but then it does everything good does come to an end at one point. What made the decision here for that one last ride of it all, and just ending the team there?
So everything I said good about Corey earlier, I truly mean.
Okay.
But I'm going to tell you why he's a dick. So he he puts up a Facebook post, doesn't tell me anything's happening. I'm not smartened up whatsoever. Puts up a Facebook post that gets sent to me on my birthday, which is the day that he posted it, saying that he's retiring from pro wrestling. And I sent him a pretty long text message, and I was mean in the nicest possible way, and pretty much told him he owed me one. But he has so many things that he wants to still accomplish. Like he's got his own record label now. He just had an album out, Chavis Island. It's on any of your streaming platforms. Check it out. It's dope. He's really good at what he does. He makes his beats. He raps. He does all the engineering and production on it. Just check it out. Chavis Island. Here's your plug, Corey. I hate you. But he retires, and I'm like, okay, like cool. Like, and I was already doing my thing singles wise or whatever, but still, it's just like I wanted our last match to be our last match. You know what I mean? Like I didn't want to look back and say, oh well, that was our last match. Like I wanted to have that. You know what I mean? So uh, there's a company in Jacksonville, USWA, and I've been working with them since they started, so a little over a decade now. And I was like, hey, I'm going to talk Corey into doing a final match. And there's a team there. They were called That Classic Tag Team. And they were very, very talented. And we wanted to go out how we came in, like taking a team that was close and then elevating them a little bit. So they give us the okay. And I was like, hey, man, we got a booking on such and such date. He said, what do you mean? I was like, well, since you didn't give me a last match, I'm taking a last match. I need you to be here at this time on this day. And he's like, all right. So very short notice, came in about, I don't know, probably about a 25-minute match, tore it down. I surprised him because I knew I was going to get emotional because Corey and I were very, very, still are very, very tight to this day.
Yeah.
So I knew I was going to get emotional once he started taking his boots off. Like I knew that. So I was like, how do I get him? So I hit up Adam Pearce, who's doing his thing on SmackDown at the time. I'm like, hey man, can you do me a favor? I'm not going to tell you what to say, but can you give me some kind of intro? He goes, I got you. And he puts together this like chill inducing intro. And we're getting ready to walk to the entrance. And I'm like, hey, I want you to listen to the music. And then Pierce starts talking. said, "That's Pierce, by the way." And he looks at me. I said, "Well, if I'm gonna cry later, you got to do it now." And I walked away from him. And so the cool thing about it was he got to stand there in that moment, and he got to listen to Pierce, who was very instrumental in the Dark City Fight Club being what we are. Pierce is the one that coined the phrase "Sin Dark City." So yeah, that was all him, and we can get into that in a minute too.
Gotcha.
But I wanted Corey to have that moment at the curtain, and I wanted him to hear the guy that helped us get there when we were on our way out as a team or whatever. But we went out there and tore it down, standing O, had a lot of fun, and then he did his retirement speech, and I'm still mad.
Hey, yeah, it can't get better than that for a send off. At least to go out the way you would have wanted instead of just, well, happy birthday. Here's a post. I'm out.
Yeah.
Like at least you got to do something like that, have a moment like that, and then have one last rib of like, well, you're gonna cry first. Here you go.
Yep. For sure.
So perfect way. But let me go back to the chat here, and of course, my good buddy Toe has to rib me now, saying I just came by here to say Ray's a troublemaker. He called me short once. There's a reason for that, but he's calling me a troublemaker just because on the other podcast we do, he likes to stir up trouble with every person we have on. So, Toe, it's not going to work this time. We're having a nice conversation here. So,
for sure.
But back to that then again. So, tell us a little bit about that. How was it that influence on Pierce for you guys, and just what that meant to the group overall?
Well, so Pierce is one of the boys, first and foremost.
Of course.
He was long-reigning, multi-time NWA World Champion, and he did good business everywhere he went. He's one of the people that when we were out after shows, I could always find him, and we just kind of sit and we just kind of talk business. And he'd say, "Okay, Johnny boy, this is what I'm thinking, and this is what I see." And he would talk about the whole business, not just Ring of Honor's money, but everybody. And we would just sit and talk business. And but he has such a good mind for it, and he knows what works for guys and what doesn't work for guys. And he's not afraid to tell you very bluntly if something you did was stupid or wrong. And that's he's passionate. Let's put it that way. So I don't remember when it started, but we're doing a pre-show, the pre-show was happening, and we're by the monitors and we're watching, and this match was going a little long, and Pierce is starting to get frustrated, and I'm not going to do an impression because it's a lot of profanity, but anybody who's ever worked with him backstage and saw him at the Gorilla knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay.
And he had a very specific way to open to show his displeasure. It was a 2-word curse, and you can figure it out from there. And then it would just kind of go into this tirade, and he was looking around the locker room, and Corey and I were just standing there. And he's like, "Go, Sin Dark City, and he just said Sin Dark City, and we took off. There was no, hey, who do we attack? We just went and got everybody. And so it became a thing to where all the boys reacted to it, obviously. And when the talent that was in the ring got to the back, they told you they were talked to about it. They weren't dressed down or anything unless it was egregious, but you kind of talk to them about it. And fun fact, Adam Cole's first match in Ring of Honor, he's in a 6-man tag, and he gets the tag to come in, but what he doesn't know is they are at his tag officially going long. So he tags and he meets me and Corey. This story's up somewhere with him telling it. It's I think he's talking to the Bucks or somebody. And but that was Adam Cole's first match with Ring of Honor. He's all ready for this tryout. He was very young, babyface kid, and then it just kind of
yeah.
Well,
welcome to Ring of Honor.
But I mean, he did okay for himself too. So yeah, I don't think he's too upset about it. We're still cool. I saw him last time I saw him. We hugged. We're good. But Pierce he just wanted you to. He was real big on it's professional wrestling. So when you come in and you're trying to get this name and build on this company and get a job with this company, it's okay. We're professionals. Be professional. Stick to your times. Know where the cameras are at. This, that, and the third. But if you didn't, you get to meet me and Corey. And But he was, like I said, I could always bend his ear. I could text him right now. And what is it? Today's Thursday. Yeah. Thursday. Yeah.
Yep.
So he would respond back to me within 15 minutes. But he's like that with everybody. I'm not special. He does that with anybody who he's cool with and
Yeah.
or was on the road with. That's just who he is. And he was invaluable to Ring of Honor's early years on television. Now, Gabe Sapolsky was running beforehand. Gabe's got a great mind, and he's really, really good with talent. And he's doing really good things right now too. But it was two different artists. So the way they treated the cameras was a little bit different. Both of them excellent, but for that time and going into that run, I think that Gabe's influence was there, and then Pierce just kind of molded it into where he thought it should be, and that's what made Ring of Honor so successful at that particular time.
Definitely, and then you could see the little touches are there, but definitely just maybe the polishing that was needed to get to the modern era of what Ring of Honor was going into, especially at that point.
Correct.
So.
And then, you know, they were doing gyms and doing big numbers in gyms, and then we go to Philly for that first taping, and there's a truck out back, and so we're all like getting pulled into the truck, and we're like, "What is this?" And they're breaking down how they do everything, you know. And so it's like, just everything was. We got to watch that grow with the company. Kerry was real big on, "Hey, come to the truck, look at this, and he'd hang out in the truck with us. Or we'd back up and we'd go into the little crow's nest in the arena, and we'd kind of watch how everything was going. He'd say, "So what do you think?" Or "What would you do?" And this and that. And so he talked business with everybody. And it just kind of, we all felt like partial owners for the most part, because everybody's feedback was welcome and we all got a chance to learn.
Awesome. And again, that's another thing that just shows where the experience like that now builds you for the rest of your career, having that kind of mindset, knowing how this is supposed to run, knowing how this can be and what to look for, of making the presentation even bigger than it can be.
Absolutely.
So, and here we go. We got Federated in the chat saying, if John and Corey are coming, just fucking run, leave the building and don't come back until the following week. Oh, that's great. You know, again, let's segue into that then. That's another conversation I do want to have with you. And let's go into how did that establish? How do we get to a moment like this? How do we have your affiliation with Federated? And shout out to Mr. Martinez, because I know he's the one watching.
For sure. So I met Elliot after, might have been Style Battle 1.
Okay.
So it was me, Tony Nese, Brody, Fox, Sammy, Bobby Fish. That was the first Style Battle, and it was all a one-night deal. And I might have met him at BB King's. It was one of the two. So it was right around each other. But
Gotcha.
we just kind of got to chit-chat, and he said, "Hey, man, I had this idea." And he kind of pitched it to me. And his passion when he pitched it to me, and how excited he got about just the possibility of it maybe being a thing if it takes off. And now we're talking 12 years ago, something like that. Yeah. So, and he's like, he just how excited he was for it and how much he wanted it. I was like, okay, well, I'm in. He's like, I remember I told him that I was good with it, and he goes, "Really?" I was like, "Yeah." Like, okay. And like, we just both kind of got excited. And as the concept grew and things started getting locked into place, he was doing things there, and of course I was traveling around and everything. And but like, we just became tight. Like, we're family now. So anytime I'm in the Northeast, I'm at his house, and I'm hanging out with his family, and we're going to diners, which is necessary. Promoters in the Northeast, if you book me and you have somebody come pick me up, we're going to a diner. So make sure I'm getting there like 5 hours before the show. Now I'm going to be late. It's your fault. But
there you go. So Pete, if you're still listening, the diner visit is going to be needed before the Bronx. And here we go. Elliot's letting us know you came out with the first Federated t-shirt at Style Battle. So it was before Style Battle that you guys met. There you go.
Yeah, so it had to be at BB King's,
yeah,
the show beforehand, and then I got into the Style Battle.
There you go.
So, but yeah, like, we grew together. I have a picture of his dog as one of the screensavers on my television. So like, that's how close Elliot and I are.
Got you.
So it's a family thing, and that's one of the things. That's one of the cool things about Federated is that they they care so much about everybody involved. And if he doesn't have an answer, he's gonna ask me a question. If I don't have the answer, he's gonna ask somebody else a question. And when you look at the Federated roster throughout the years, it's insane. There's a ton of talent on there.
Yeah. Again,
And that,
like he puts there, you're the founding member right there. One of the first, right there. Federated's number one. But no, definitely, you look at it, it's you. You have Corey in there. You have Casey. Now, when you look at the modern roster, Casey Navarro in there, Mike Orlando, O'Shea Edwards, which again, you guys just killing it as part of the Federated, as also Sentai. So just
mm-hmm,
the again a stacked now with a good friend of mine, Rembrandt, in there, one of my brothers, who's now part of the newer chapter of Federated. Just a who's who in there.
and that's the thing. Again, it's one of those things. It's a family. Even if you become inactive and you're not in there for a while or whatever causes you to part ways and say you leave the business or whatever, you can still hit anybody up and everybody still kind of looks out for you. That's one of the big things about Federated that drew me in, just because of how tight everybody got and how much we pushed each other uh, to stay focused on what they was trying to do.
Gotcha. Well, Mr. Martinez, I know you're still watching. I'm still waiting for my shirt because we agreed on me being the official podcast of Federated. I still haven't gotten the Federated T-shirt. We gotta
I'll
work
make
on
some
that.
I'll make some calls for you. I got
There
you.
you go. I think you know a guy. I think you know a guy. But with that, let's go into this now, especially being again the founding member of Federated in there. But let's talk about the pairing with you and the big bad kaiju O'Shea Edwards. How did that establish? Because again, I can imagine you have your pick. You can pick anyone to be in there with. What was it that you saw in O'Shea that made you decide this needs to be a pairing now?
So what would I not see in O'Shea Edwards? He's big. He looks like an animal. He's strong as hell. He can talk, and he doesn't talk like what people want him to talk like. He and I are closer in the way that we talk than anything else. But like, he's very, very smart. He understands the business. He makes good business decisions. You don't ever see him kind of put out, or there's no drama. You know what I mean? There's nobody calling him out. He's not getting himself in trouble. He keeps his nose clean. Um, he's not gonna let you push him around by any stretch of the imagination, and he's gonna do business. But he is very, very close to a complete package as far as a heavyweight goes, and he he's only gonna get better. And he's not gonna tell you that he knows he can get better, but he gets better every time you see him, so you know that he knows that he can get better. And that's not saying that he's got a lot to cover. That's
Yeah,
just it's finishing touches here and there. You know what
of
I mean?
course. Yeah. Again, it's
Um,
that polishing like we talked about earlier. Like
yeah.
there's already that influence there. There's something there, but it's just the fine tuning to make it a perfect piece there.
One day he's going to be on somebody's television, and that music's going to hit, and he's going to stand on that stage, and everything's going to come together, and everything's going to make sense. And everybody's going to be like, you know what? Of course it's O'Shea. Now, I met O'Shea when he first started in Mississippi.
Okay.
Uh, I was working for a company called Pro Wrestling Ego, and Shea was there. And he wasn't as gigantic as he is now, but he was still a pretty big boy. And we would just chop it up. And he was so hungry for information. Hey, what is this like? How do I get here? What's this company like? What's this company like? When I start traveling, what do I need to be looking for? What I need to feel, you know? And I would just chop it up with him. And we just got to chit chatting and talking, and we became cool. And then fast forward some years, it was Mania weekend in Tampa, and we were working for Pro Wrestling Action and Southern Underground Pro. We're doing this joint show, Have Fun, Be Sad, and it was Shay had one match that weekend, and it was me. And he didn't have to be there. He didn't need that money. He was doing pretty good for himself, and he just requested he wanted to jump in there with me. And I remember his flight was delayed. He got there late, and then we just started banging. Like we bell rang and we just went at it. And it wasn't like a you got to get past me kid type of thing. I wanted to go, and there's not a lot of people, and I'm saying this honestly, there's not a lot of people that I'm going to stand across the ring from and know that we're going to bang. There's a lot of guys who look like it, and then the bell rings and you hit them, and it's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
But Shay was there for it. and he's a solid dude. And he was over 300 pounds at the time too. And there was no chain wrestling. There was no, okay, brother, we just right away. Like we went right into just big moves. We were dropping bombs right away. And it threw the crowd off. And the announcers were a little thrown off too. But that's how hungry both of us were. But he's never lost that hunger. And he's always striving to be better. He is breaking personal records in the gym right now, which is bananas. He's squatting the house. He's benching your car. He's just a monster. And so when the opportunity came for me to have a tag team partner that I was going to take seriously, because after Corey, it was I had Corey, one of my mentors, Bruce Santee, and O'Shea Edwards. Those are my 3 tag team partners throughout my career. And I've had other guys that I've tagged with here and there, but these guys are my tag partners. And so these are guys that I want in my corner. These are guys that I'm going to go to war for, that I'm going to be accountable for, and they're going to be accountable for me. So O'Shea is going to be the last tag partner regularly that I have as a wrestler, but he has a lot to offer. So when it came time to make a choice, it was pretty easy for me to do.
Gotcha. And again, it seems like the pairing is just perfect at this point. You guys have been dominant, destructive everywhere you go, and just seeing what you guys did to, again, also 2 friends of mine in the main event. Yeah, they definitely were left just in the ruins there.
Well, we are from a time past. We're not flippy dude guys. We don't have to slap everybody's hands. We're not, hey, cheer for me. You know what I mean? Like if you cheer, you cheer. If you boo, you boo. We still get paid. And if we have to beat up your favorite wrestler, then we have to beat up your favorite wrestler. It's back to respecting the craft. We're here to do a job, and we're going to do that job. And hopefully we're not employed to do so against whoever your number one is.
I got you again. It's understandable and respectful. Again, it's a business, like we talked about at the beginning of this. But I would assume you know what he means by here. He says bicycle seat. This is coming from Federated. I would hope you know what that means, because I'm just like, he didn't say anything about a bike, but okay.
Yeah. There's a lot of inside jokes, especially with Elliot.
Got you.
Yeah.
I'm glad that popped you, so that's perfect.
Yeah, I know you're watching Elliot, so my rebuttal is going to be gangster soup, and we'll get into that some other time.
Okay, that's going to be one, maybe an in-person combo. We'll talk about that at the show, because let's get into that, because again, we're talking about the pairing. We're talking about just how devastating you've been, not only singles wise, but in the tag team. There's another guy that I feel like is just similar paths. He's had multiple partners. He's had just a destructive force. Let's get into the match happening in a few weeks here at We Are Wrestling, as it's going to be Sentai going head to head with Sent to Slaughter. I know you wanted to have that solo contest with Danny Moff, but it looks like, again, you're going to war with just different battle partners at this point.
Correct. Moff is one of those guys, man. He's an OG. His style has not relented at any form of his career. He's wrestled the same sick. He's wrestled the same hurt. Healthy. It's 110% every single time the bell rings. One of the stronger humans that I've ever been in the ring with. And that's, I've been in the ring with Claudio and Jeff Cobb, so that tells you something. But he just goes and he brings it out of you. So any chance that I get to throw hands with Daniel, as I like to call him, I'm going to do it. And he's one of those, another guy, like, people need to be putting flowers at his feet. And he's done it with a few other partners, but me and Corey got to work with the Hit Squad. We got a match with them. And so that was one of my bucket list things. There was the few guys that I wanted to mix it up with. They were on that list. And I wasn't disappointed. And still to this day, not disappointed. I look back on that match fondly. Even though I got a door stuck in my back, like a broken piece of a door stuck in my back. But it wasn't Daniel, so I'm not going to hold it against him. Anyway, but Sin Slaughter is like a lot of teams. They're big, they're dominant, they have a cool look. I'm sure their entrance music is pretty dope. I haven't heard it yet. But like a lot of teams, they are in their head and they're feeling themselves and they think they're ready. And that's cool because that's what we want. But we're coming to eat. And, y'all are a little bit bigger of a serving than we're used to, but we'll clean the plate. It's not going to be this grand back and forth. This isn't going to be what the independents are now. We're going to look at it's going to be like All Japan in the 80s and 90s. You're going to be seeing Williams and Gordy. Where niceties are cool after the match. We can shake hands, but when the bell rings, it's going to be a battle.
Definitely looking forward to see that again, just to see all four of you what's going to bring. Because I can imagine, again, just you and Moff in there, what's going to be. But now you're adding in O'Shea, you're adding in Sean Donovan. That's going to be a collision. Again, I hope Pete has the insurance very, very well for the venue.
And not to discount Sean. I'm sorry, I feel like I went off talking about Daniel for a little bit. Not to discount Sean. Sean's very good. I usually go to his Twitter page to see all the retweets of the wrestling that I like. Not a lot of clips of him, but I mean, whatever, get you over. We are going to. There's going to be a lot of humanity in that ring. Again, I'm 275, and I know Daniel's not small. I know Sean's not small. I'm sure as hell know that O'Shea's not small. So Pete, reinforce the ring, have insurance, and hope for the best.
Yeah. Well, then that's going to be a sight to see. Will you guys be able to hit? Because I know you do it now as a combo. Will we see that Siberian Bear Crusher done to one of the members of Sense of Slaughter?
There is not a person wrestling right now that O'Shea and I cannot hit with that move.
Got you.
And quote me on it. There is not a person in the business right now that we can't hit that move on.
Here you go. And here we go now. Again, I'm just going to say it's Elliot because I can imagine that's who's commenting, saying pray. So there you go. It definitely was. Pete saying, O'Shea versus Moff 1 was a damn war. It definitely was. Again, the door was used there as well. So yeah. Doors and Moff, it comes around.
He had, real fast, speaking of doors, he was working, it was Mania weekend, working for Danny DeMonto, doing the ICW thing. Shouts to Danny. Who was he wrestling?
Was it the match with Mance Warner?
Nope. They were in the cage. It was a tournament. Oh my God. It was anyway, it'll hit me. Yeah. Anyway, there was a thing where it was Reed. Okay. So Reed's got the door and he's smashing down. Boom, 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 boom. And his head goes through the door, right?
Okay, yeah. I know exactly. Yep.
And he comes up and has this like psycho moment. And I remember he stood up, and I remember people who weren't even wrestling fans, they were just there drinking and enjoying the atmosphere. Everybody looked at each other and their mouths dropped and like, what the and then it just took off. And that was that's legitimately one of the coolest moments I've witnessed in pro wrestling. Just the way the room felt when that happened. It was insane. And I don't even know how the door got around his head because his traps stop right here. So it doesn't make sense, but it happened.
There's a perfect angle, and then Well then, and now he's this was a starting point. Everything else was just we get to that. And it's just like, oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Here we go. Let's see. Davis being in a ring with Moff is 2 years in the making. That match was supposed to be. There we go. And I've had this combo with Pete. That was supposed to be the original singles match. But hey, again, even more elements added to it. It's going to be insane.
Yeah, and it's crazy how it all works out.
Yep. Here we go. The monster movie door spot from Elliot. So I know JD has been waiting for this. That's what I'm most scared of, is pen up. Yeah. That's going to be just pen up aggression there. Again, hopefully the ring is ready for this. So shout out to We Are Wrestling. Be there, guys, for Deja Vu, a stacked card. And this is This might need to be the main event, so the ring doesn't implode beforehand, before the
But
rest of the show.
if it does, and you're after us, we're still getting paid the same. So sorry, guys.
There you go. But let's keep it going here. Again, we talked about your tag team stuff. Let's go a little bit into your singles career as well, because you've had an insane, just stacked career as well, going into the days of FIP to Evolve to Dragon Gate, and just a list of who's who that you've gone in there as well. Because a lot of guys that you see on a regular Monday to Wednesday on television right now, and Friday as well. So let's talk about a little bit about that and how were those for you in that experience with guys like Eddie Kingston in there, Riddle in there, Johnny Gargano, and the list just goes on and on.
So it was crazy because the first time I did FIP, Brian was still the champ. Davey Richards was just breaking into the area. It was him and Tony Casino traveling around. Shima was there. Cyber Kong was there. Briscoes were there. The locker room was insane. And I came in as a last minute replacement for somebody. And then they used me that once and I disappeared. And then I came back again in, I think, a singles match versus Seth Delay. Then I disappeared again. And then the next time I came back, Corey was with me. And that completely changed everything. But FIP, I've been through and been into in most of their phases. The sister company to Ring of Honor, and then the sister company to Evolve, and then trying to make their own mark in the WWN family. And I've honestly, man, my career it's just been, I've been lucky, right place, right time. I remember getting signed to Ring of Honor, and people would be like, "Well, what did you do to get signed to Ring of Honor?" I'm like, I have no idea. I just beat people up. And then I got signed to Evolve and Dragon Gate. What did you do to get signed to Evolve and Dragon Gate? I mean, I don't know, man. I just beat people up. That's just what my thing is. But I've been able to parlay this career into some dope experiences, not just for people, but just for me, because I am a wrestling fan first and foremost. I've been able to be in the ring with guys like O'Shea. I've wrestled Corey. I've wrestled, been in the rings with Kings of Wrestling, the Briscoes, Gargano, Seth Rollins, everybody pretty much.
Yeah.
Owens, Zayn. I'm not used to their TV.
Yeah,
now,
gotcha. Well, again, you
saying.
said it. Match one was them, and it was like, match one in Ring of Honor. That's like, oh yeah, that's a way to start. Just two of the best guys to ever walk in there. That was match one.
You know, I was lucky to have been just thrown into the fire, and it was a sink or swim kind of thing, and my arms didn't get tired, luckily. So it was just getting to have those experiences and being. I mean, I remember there was times I was walking into matches, and I'm like, how did I get here? You know, we're in buildings with 1,500 people, and it's a Mania weekend, and they're all waiting for this particular match. And I got to be in the ring with Finley, who I saw open a Corona with his eyeball. I don't know if you heard me. Anybody at home? He opened a Corona with his eyeball. Ask Shug D. He was the guy that handed him the Corona. It was the most gangster thing I've ever seen in my life.
Right there, that's it. Like, it's the crazy part is, it's like I just believe you just from that, because it's like, of course Finley would do something like that. Like, what? Why wouldn't he?
I told this story to Brogan, and Brogan's like, I thought my dad was lying to me. I was like, no, I saw it in person, and it still shakes me to this day. But he does that, and then 20 minutes later, like, oh, John, you and Finley are going to have a match at such and such place at such and such time. I was like, Gabe, he just opened a Corona with his eye. But anyway, so I've been lucky, because I've gotten to be in the ring with guys who've had experience in each generation, in each era, pretty much of the last, God, when the family started, 70s. So, you know what I mean? Like, there's been so much knowledge that I've been able to acquire. And that's the thing for younger wrestlers coming up real fast. If you get to be in a ring with somebody, even if you're not going to take the advice right away, listen to what they're telling you. If they pull you to the side and say, hey, look, man, I know you don't know me, but this is what I see. Make a note. Write it down. Talk to it about somebody else on the way home when you're booking territories. But use that advice, because a lot of little things that guys would tell me when I was really, really young and I was working these little terrible indies and nobody knew who anybody was and none of those guys ever made it. Those vets were telling me things. I'm like, whatever, what do you know? And then I find myself doing it 10 years later, 5 years later. But that's just something for the young guys. If you're paying attention, that's listen to everything, take everything down. Like, again, you don't have to use it right away. And it might not be for you, but if a guy who's been around and had that experience is going to use his time to give you a little bit of advice, thank you, sir, and just try it. But
Gotcha.
that's what a lot of things that made me successful was. I got the ability to wrestle Dory Funk Jr. and I met him. And again, I was an NWA kid, so he won his first world title a decade before I was even alive. So I meet him, and the promoter's like, "Hey, you guys are wrestling in the semi-main event." I'm like, "I'm sorry, what?" And then Dory proceeds to beat my behind for 15 minutes. One of the tougher old men that I've ever been in a ring with. It was crazy. Like, at one point, I forgot that I was wrestling, and I was just looking at the ceiling and walking backwards from an uppercut. I've never been hit that hard. But I've had like Dory, and like I'd bump into Billy Gunn and X Pac here and there, and it's just real quick, brief meetings, and they just like, "Hey kid, do blah 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 blah," you know what I mean? And there's little stuff like that. Chance meeting Nikita Koloff at a spot show in South Florida, and just him giving little tidbits of advice, and it's one of those things. Jimmy Rave was another guy who he knew so much, and he's one of those guys that forgets more about the business than most people will ever learn. And he was one of the guys he was one of my first big name matches at the time. And he gave me so much information. I mean, off the bat, just right away, like, hey, this is what people are looking for. This is what Ring of Honor wants. This is what they're looking for in Japan, or learn your styles, be proficient, blah, 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 blah. And he was he's the reason if you see my entrance, I raise my hand and I put two fingers up, and every single time that's for Jimmy because of what he did for me. And there's a lot of guys just like me who do the same thing. And if you get a chance, look those guys up because they're serious too. But that's just being fortunate in the business. Guys who really are passionate about pro wrestling and want to see guys do good were there to give me ideas and feedback and critique. And I always took it. Even if I didn't like what they were saying, I always took it. And that kind of helped get me to where I started catching steam. And even higher up in doing Evolve and Dragon Gate and Ring of Honor, those guys are like, hey, try this, try this, try this. And you apply it to your game, and either it works or it doesn't. But at least you tried it and you know.
Again, I'm hoping anyone listening to this, please take that advice. Again, coming from a guy that not only does he have on his own over 2 decades of experience, but then just the experience he's gained over the years and just who's who he's worked with. Please, if you're listening to this, take these gems, take all this. And especially if you're in a locker room like that, use the advantage of having amazing minds back there and just pick their brains. That's what I try to do every time I'm in a locker room, is just picking the brains of those that I know that have come before me and just the amazing things they've done. And just every time I try to pick those brains.
And that's one of my things. If I'm in a locker room with you and you have a question, ask me a question. If I can't answer it right then, I'll say, yo, I got to go do this thing. When I'm finished, come find me. Or I'll give you my phone number. Hey, text me, call me, send me matches. And I try to help everybody out. It's just one of those things. I want the business to be better when I leave it than when I found it. And it's not going to be, I don't want credit or a pat on the back or anything, but if I can help one or two people that go on and do something bigger and they keep that mindset, then that's all I need.
That's perfect. And again, that's a mindset I wish so many more. Definitely, I've been lucky to meet a lot of people that have that mindset. Like again, the names you're mentioning, I've gotten to take their knowledge a lot of the times. The Max, the Moffs, the Homicides, guys like that. That Jimmy Rave, I was lucky to work with for a while at Capital/Catalyst Wrestling and get to pick his brain for a while and just be there and again take any advice I can and just put it into what I want to do in the business. So it's always a pleasure to get to talk to you guys and get that type of knowledge, which is why I love doing this podcast, just to be able to get even more when I can't do it at shows as well. So,
well, before we started, I remember I was like, how old are you? You're a kid, right? And you kind of laughed or whatever. But I've done a few podcasts here and there, and I've talked to a lot of people. But like, watching you get excited about answers and watching you take things in, like that's what's going to make you successful. You know what I mean? Like it's one of those things where like when we're talking to guys and guys are actually taking in what we're saying, we know. And if you're just kind of thinking about whatever your next thing is or what you're going to have to eat or whatever it is, we know. So it's refreshing to be able to sit down and talk with somebody and like have a genuine conversation and see that they're paying attention and see that they're excited about the business. So thank you for that.
No, thank you. And again, that's one of the reasons why I called this the respect the craft, because I have that genuine respect for this. Like the business has, again, it's one of those where it's given me a lot, even though it's supposed to give you nothing in this. Nothing is just given. It's earned in
Yeah,
this, and being able to be a part of this and have just these moments like this, it's always a pleasure. So I thank you again for coming on. But
it's nothing.
as we continue here, let me go back to Pete now. Just fantasy booking here with a time machine. He says, "Give me a time machine so I could see Davis versus Bruiser, Davis versus Doctor Death, or how Davis versus Severin." And then now they're going into the Taz talk here, where Pete says Taz with two Z's, and Elliot corrected him with no. It has to be Taz with the one Z from ECW.
We
That's
have
what we.
free copyright infringement tab.
Yeah, there we go. That's what we need.
So weird note is O'Shea and I did a show in Jacksonville, River City Wrestling Con. And it's a thing they do every year. Nick and Sam are running it. It's a big, big thing. If you're ever in Jacksonville or now the St. Augustine area, June of pretty much every year, they have everybody there. And we were fortunate enough to be unintentionally debuted in front of this crowd by Dan Severin. A guy named Simon Says was in the ring, and he was running down all the veterans that were out there signing autographs and stuff. And he said something to Dan, and just Dan comes to the back, goes, "You guys ready?" I'm like, "Okay." And Dan walks out, holds his hands up, our music hits, and we came out. So Dan Severin kind of unintentionally like gave us that moment. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
that's insane. And again, that's just another one of those right place, right time. Just
yeah.
there you
And
go.
Dan Severin's hands are still like I don't have small hands, and his hands are still like this. It doesn't make sense because we're almost the same height.
Yeah, but it's
So
still, somehow it's still like it's towering.
yeah,
Wow. Okay.
yeah.
Well,
But
again, let's.
a lot of the guys on that list, that he named are guys that I grew up watching, and I'm a huge Dr. Death fan. So like those are why matches like me and Kingston work because we're both fans of that old school style and we're going to bang and we're going to throw. We're going to bang and we're going to throw. So like things like that. There you go. JD Drake, Kingston, Riddle, Elgin, like those were all matches where people are like, "Oh, this kid is or this guy's whoever he's supposed to be here." I'm like, "Cool, feed him to me." I remember shaking Riddle's hand after that match from that picture, and I was like, I can't wait to watch you on Monday nights. And you can see me say it to him if you watch the footage back. And he goes, "Get out of here." He's like, "No, I'm serious." And I looked him right in his eye, "I'm serious." And he's like, "No, it'll never happen." And I was right, but whatever.
Again,
But
maybe that's what it is. It's just that touch. Once you're in there with them, it sends them away.
yeah,
It sends them to the big time.
great for them. I mean, if you guys want to shoot me a little bit on the back end, we're cool.
At this point, you just got to pin yourself. That's it. That's how you get sent away. just somehow get yourself to get hit with the Siberian bear. That's it. Just hit yourself with it, and that's it. You get sent.
Yeah.
But no, and again, it's showing just how a match like that, what that respect comes into it, and that's something you see in all those pictures there. Just that respect factor and what a match like that means for both of you in there. For no matter who was your opponent, just having that common respect in the ring, and just what truly this all means to you guys.
For sure. And it's professional wrestling. If you treat it like a sport and you treat it like a profession, then you're going to be treated and viewed as a professional. And that's you just got to push and push and push. And there's going to be times every time that I've thought about hanging everything up and it being tough is when I've got my biggest opportunities. And that's one of the hardest parts about this is that being a business, sometimes you're just not on the menu. And don't take it personally. You just got to figure out what ingredients to add to what you're serving to make people request it at this restaurant, and that's how you get on. I know that was a food metaphor. I'm kind of hungry, but uh, they but that's kind of the secret. You know what I mean? Just
Yep.
make yourself undeniable.
Gotcha. No, and again, that's another one. If anyone's listening to this, especially afterward, take gems like that down, because I feel like that's one of those where it's always that in your head, like, what am I doing wrong? What is this? What is this? And it just discourages so many to want to possibly stop doing what we love here.
Correct. And it's not that a promoter or company doesn't want you. You have to make them know that they want you. Make them think that it was their idea to book you by doing things to where they're always seeing you. You don't have to send them tape every week. But if you're on this show and they're talking about you on the internet, especially now, they're gonna know who you are. And if you have these clips that are popping off, as much as I think that people posting quick clips of matches and moves and stuff can be detrimental, it can also help you a lot. Because if there are people watching these clips and they're retweeting and they're sharing and all this other stuff and they're quote tweeting things and they're mentioning you by name, then that means people are talking about you. And that's, again, how you get these promoters like, you know what, I should book that kid. Even if you send them 25 emails, let it be their idea. Make yourself undeniable. Like, you just keep pushing.
Gotcha. That's perfect right there. Now, I want to ask this because, again, you've wrestled almost anyone you can imagine in there, but I can imagine there has to still be maybe someone you're now seeing. Who does John Davis want to face in that ring? Is there someone possibly that you haven't had a chance to yet that's just like it's right there, but it hasn't just happened yet? So for promoters listening, it's time to make money. Who does John Davis want to face in that ring?
Man, there's a few guys. If I'm looking Northeast singles guys, I want to wrestle Effie.
Okay.
I've known Effie for a long time. I think people look at him as a personality, but I know that he can get down in the ring. So I want to work with Effie. I'd want to wrestle Manser. I'd want to wrestle Sean Legacy he's out of Georgia. He just came back from Japan. That kid's insane. It doesn't make any sense. He just tore it down with Jay Lethal in Georgia at Viral Pro. It was bananas. If you get a chance, check it out. I don't know if it's on IWTV yet, but hopefully it will be soon. But they destroyed it. It doesn't make any sense. Brody King.
Ooh, okay.
I like that style.
Yeah, definitely. Again, that would be one, just a banger right there.
Yep. Jared Diaz. I don't think he's coming into his own finally.
Yeah.
And I remember him breaking in and me seeing it and like, okay, like there's something there. And then, but like now it's all merging together. So I would like to see how high I could throw him.
That definitely would be a sight again.
Yeah. I feel like there's guys that I'm forgetting. But yeah, I mean, that's just a real quick snapshot of like the last few things that I've seen, last few people I've saw.
Gotcha. No, that's perfect right there. And again, those are a nice combination. It's not just one style; it's just a mixture of things in there. So perfect. I had to get into that because I feel like, especially with who you've already competed in there with, to think who's still on that remaining list of like, yeah, we need to get this in, we got to get this in, because I know that singles with Moff is still out there. You still want that one-on-one.
It will happen, Pete.
Yeah.
Pete, it will happen. But I'm not worried about that not taking place because it's unless somebody drags their feet and either Moff or myself retire, it's gonna happen.
Yeah, and there we go. I think there are a lot of potential money opponents for JD on the. Yeah, there's a lot of people on that poster that I feel like it could be. Let's just look at the poster for a sec, because again, he mentioned one of them because Jared Diaz is on that poster. So, hey, that title, I feel like John Davis wouldn't mind holding that We Are Wrestling Championship right there from Rob Killjoy.
I'm with it.
And I don't know, maybe you and Darius need to get in there. I feel like that would be. Especially that he works that style that you love to watch. I feel like that might be interesting.
Yeah, Darius is another one of those guys who I feel like he's ready, honestly. And I feel like a lot of people uh, aren't giving him his due, and it could be because he's very careful and specific with where he goes and how he's presented. But
Definitely.
that he is, I feel like I put over too many people, but he's
Hey,
really, really good.
this is
But
one of
like,
those when it's a great conversation when it's like,
yeah,
even though it's supposed to be about you, you put over everyone else in this
yeah.
conversation.
Every time I see him, like we shake hands and we just kind of chit chat about the business a little bit. And he's a student of the game. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? He's very classic, um, very classic vibe to him. Like he's a pro, and like he's wise beyond his years. I guess is the
yeah.
best way to say it. And he just gives you that vibe like there's something special happening, and you uh, typically want to kill him and you hate his guts by the end of the match or whatever. But he gets it.
Yeah. No, no, that's one of those. Every time I see him, we have that conversation of just breaking down the business and breaking down all this. And legit, it's one of those where he'll make you feel something. It's either gonna be you're gonna hate his guts or you're just gonna be like, how did he do something like that? How does he
Yeah,
make it feel something in there? But again, the nature of the business, you want to get something, you want that reaction because
absolutely.
that's the best thing. But now let's go into this. This is another topic I wanted to bring up because I feel like especially with how the brand is, you're one of those names that again it's talked about wrestling over everything. So when we show that, what does that mean to you there?
So, uh, family. Um, if you bleed with me, you're my brother. That's one of the old adages. And I've been lucky again to acquire the amount of knowledge that I have and be in the room with the people that I've been in, and getting to be able to forge bonds with uh, not only wrestlers but their families, um, and and watch their kids grow and watch their wives go from hating the business to just kind of disliking it here and there. You know what I mean? Like wrestling over everything was started in tribute to someone, and Mama Sandra wanted Chuck to do something. She knew that he loved wrestling, and she knew that he wanted to make a name for himself. And so when she passed, there was no question that what was getting ready to happen, you know? So it just kind of snowballed from there. I'm actually wearing one of their shirts now. I don't know if you guys can see that.
There you go.
So, but to me, it's when people hear the phrase, it's often argued like, "Oh, well, my family is more important than wrestling," or "Oh, this is more important than wrestling," and da 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 da, and money is more important than wrestling. Well, if you're a good pro wrestler, then your family is benefiting. So your family is a part of wrestling. And if you're a good pro wrestler, then you're making money. So money is a part of wrestling. If you're a good pro wrestler, living out your dreams is part of wrestling. So wrestling is not only over everything, but it could be everything. But for branding purposes, we're going to go wrestling over everything. But it's it's so much to so many people. There's so many locker rooms I can walk into and see somebody and genuinely be happy and hug them and just want to know how their life is. Not just wrestling, not just where you're working, not just, hey, how did you do at the merch table? Like, what's going on with you? You know what I mean? And I actually care about these people. And I like to think that these people actually care about me. And these are relationships that even after I've hung my boots up and I'm far away from the business as far as being in ring goes, if I run into these people, I know that I'm still gonna be cool and we're still gonna have that bond, and that's gonna be a thing until I'm no longer a thing. And that's in a long answer, I guess, what wrestling over everything means to me.
Gotcha. No, and that's perfect. And that's one of those where I feel like again, it could be the name of the brand says it, but it's like there's so much more and a deeper meaning. And it's one of those where I feel like if you're lucky, especially in this business where you find even a family in the business. I've been
Mm-hmm.
lucky to have many people that I call brothers in here. And again, not just because, hey, how's it going, brother, brother? Like, no, it's like actual family in this business. And I'm thankful for that. So definitely, if you guys haven't already, go check out that brand as well. Support a great company there. Wrestling over everything, truly a great thing. So that's perfect. Here we go. We got Elliot saying a Tyler giggling. Oh, we gotta love it. I know this is definitely a name too. Pete mentions. I think Anthony Gamble is a young kid that should definitely cross paths with JD at some point. I would agree, and I'll be having Anthony Gamble on the podcast tomorrow. So we'll see what he thinks.
Well,
'Cause I can
I'm with it.
imagine he's also a student of the game and has seen the amazing things you've done. Because he's another one, bright up and comer that's definitely been making his waves as well. So but Mr. Davis, I don't want to take up too much more of your time because it's definitely been a great conversation. And definitely we might have to do a part two because I feel like we haven't even scratched the surface of what we could talk about here. But
Oh,
before I
I'm
do
with
let
it.
you go, that thank you. Before I let you go, I do have to ask one final question here, and that is for John Davis, what is the end goal?
Uh, leave the business better than I found it. Plain and simple. I want kids to have knowledge. I want kids to have hunger. I want kids, most importantly, to have ability and means. There's so much more than doing a springboard 450 and and having all these crazy moves or these crazy spots or these things or people are retweeting or whatever it is. I want kids to be able to feel comfortable in whatever situation they're getting into. I want people to understand how to talk, how to promo. I want people to feel comfortable in their own skin. And that's one of the things that I see a lot with pro wrestling. A lot of guys are out there and they're this image, but they're not comfortable with who they are. Be you, talk, um, act, move, do it the way that you're going to do it. We don't know what you're planning on doing. We don't know that you've been working on this catchphrase. Be genuine. Um, but again, it's just to make it better than it was when I found it. And it was already an amazing business when I got here, and it's grown even without me. It's going to be a thing. Even if there was no John Davis, there'll still be a pro wrestling business, and you'd be talking to some other handsome guy with salt and pepper beard. But the the big thing is just I just want everybody to be successful, and I'm not saying that as a thing to like get people to say, "Oh, okay, I like this interview." I'm saying it because I honestly feel that way, and if if you're a young guy or an old guy or somebody who's not wrestling anymore, somebody who's going to get into it, uh, I want you to do good, genuinely. Because if you do good, then your opponent does good, and if y'all do good, then the promotion does good, and then the territory does good, and then everything starts growing, and then the business does better, and we all make more money, and everybody's happy. And that's what I want for pro wrestling, not just me or my friends, but for pro wrestling as a whole. Even if I think that even if I think that there's things that you need to work on or that you can be better, I want you to be successful. Is the very, very heart of the issue. I want you to be successful, and that's why I make myself available to people. So that's the biggest thing. Just I want everybody to do good, and there's some stuff in the works. So maybe in part two we'll go over it a little bit more, but I might have a little bit more of a chance to do that here in the future.
Nice. No, definitely. Once that in the works, we'll definitely get in contact about that and definitely make a part two so we can talk about all that. But again, John, thank you so much for joining us here. If you guys haven't already, make sure you go follow John on Twitter, X. I'm not sure what to call it anymore, but go follow him there at John Davis 817. Is that I was gonna ask? Is that another reason why you just rather not be as on all the socials here? Is just it's the one platform to just do it all.
I picked Twitter because it's less characters,
Okay.
and there's less of a chance to make me not like your opinions.
Okay. That
So
works.
it's this. I had friends who were like, "Bro, did you see my post on Facebook?" No. Why? Because I don't follow you. But we're friends. Yeah, but you're muted. Why? Because you're dumb, and you're. I like you as a person, but sometimes you say and do things that make me want to squeeze your face. So it's way easier on Twitter and it's less stress. I'd rather everybody has differing opinions, everybody thinks differently about different things. You have less space to put your foot in your mouth on Twitter, in my opinion, than the other ones.
Got you. No, definitely that works. And again, it's one of those where if I didn't have to do this, I'd probably be the same way and not have as many social. But in order to promote this, we got to. So, but
Absolutely.
Thank you, John, again for joining us. To everyone watching, please make sure you follow this man and also be there for this huge collision. It will be We Are Wrestling presents Deja Vu C Sentai versus Sent to Slaughter. It's going to be Friday, September 8th next week, and continuing tomorrow as well. We're going to be going huge with We Are Wrestling Week and just having a bunch of the members of the roster as well. So come check out that conversation and get your tickets to be there. And as always, don't forget to be wise, be genuine, be real, be better people, respect the craft, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.